Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ray Hall Tech. Today I want to look at installing ChromeOS on a laptop, specifically this Dell Latitude machine. It's a little bit older, it's a first generation Core i3, and if you want to make an old machine that will work well, speedy, you can give it a couple upgrades like a solid state drive, maybe a RAM upgrade, but sometimes your options are limited. For example, taking a Windows 7 laptop and putting Windows 10 on it might make it run a little bit sluggish. And your options were a lightweight ChromeOS or continue running that outdated version of Windows. And there is a company out there, they're called Neverware, and they make a system called Cloud Ready. I don't want to use that. I want to use a different open source project that will use a little bit of a custom boot and kernel to actually run ChromeOS directly on this laptop. So let's get right into doing that. In order to install ChromeOS on our PC or laptop, we need to gather a few things together. And I want to say thanks to Kedar Nimbalkar. His video tutorial on YouTube helped me figure out this process and how to get everything working. I just wanted to record another video, try out the process because hands-on, a little bit better for me. And also some of the things that I've seen in other videos, they don't kind of explain what's going on. All of the links of the things that I'm going to download are going to be in the video, so you can just click on those links to help you with that. But the first thing that you're going to want to download is Linux Mint. I just use Cinnamon 64-bit. I've actually got all of these downloaded to save some time, but you're going to want a live Linux distribution that can install a couple of packages so that we can automate the installation of ChromeOS. And I use Linux Mint for that. And Cinnamon is just 64-bit, and I'm using version 20 in this particular video. The next thing that you're going to need to download is your ChromeOS image. Now, this page right here, this app spot, has a list for every single Chromebook that I've ever run across, and the one that we're looking for is going to be called Ramus. The reason for that, the best that I can gather based on what I'm reading, is this one right here. Ramus is an image that is built for multiple Chromebooks so that it has multiple different types of drivers, whereas most images are built for a specific Chromebook and only contain drivers for that specific device. We're going to use this Ramus because it seems to give us the most compatibility, but if you try this image and it's not working for you, like your touchpad doesn't work or something like that, you may need to do a little bit more research to figure out which of these is an Intel-based CPU or an AMD-based CPU, etc. But I downloaded version 86 of this Ramus image. And something to note here, I don't know how to do this on AMD yet. There is another image that you can download from here. It'll support AMD processors. You have to have an APU from 2016 or newer for that to work. Other AMD processors and video cards may be coming. Intel supports Nehalem and newer, which is basically all Core series from 2008 and newer. And the laptop we're going to use actually has a Core i3. The next thing you're going to download is Rufus. Etcher won't work to write this Linux Mint image. We definitely want to use Rufus just so that we get a reliable image written to our computer here. The next thing that you're going to want to download is from GitHub. This is the Brunch framework. And right over here, Brunch R86. It has a custom kernel and boot information for ChromeOS. And this is what's going to make ChromeOS actually boot on a non-Chromebook device. And if you come down here, you can see that it's x86 64 computers, so 32-bit and 64-bit with UEFI boot support. That means that you're going to have to set your BIOS to UEFI mode, and you're going to have to make sure Secure Boot is disabled because this does not work with Secure Boot. But you can see again, it's mentioning Nehalem first generation Core processors and AMD Stony Ridge. Again, that's about 2016. So do keep that in mind. And then One last thing that I want to note when you get this image, Brunch is not how ChromeOS is supposed to work. It is a community and open source project. As you upgrade ChromeOS in the future, it may break something with Brunch, so you may have to use Brunch to reinstall. The good thing about ChromeOS is that most things are designed to be saved to Google Drive. Keep that in mind as we use this software and ChromeOS gets updated, we could break something. By default, ChromeOS won't update automatically, but we're going to actually enable that functionality so that ChromeOS will update on its own. Finally, the last thing that you need is a shell script. Again, Kedar is the person who made this script. So you can see it's just a quick script that will update our installation, install a program called Figlet, install a program called PV, and then install CGPT. As far as I know, Figlet just gives you this information to subscribe to Kedar's channel, so definitely check him out. And then the command that's going to run is this ChromeOS install, and that's what's going to make all of the magic happen. I'm going to go ahead and prepare the USB key next. I downloaded everything into a single folder, so if you're following along, you should have 5 items in your folder at this point in time. I'm going to go ahead and get Rufus making our Linux Mint image. So let me jump over to Rufus real quick so you can see what I'm doing in there. I did insert a 32 gig USB key. You need a 16 gigabyte or larger disk, I think, for this to work, just so you have enough space for your live Linux distribution and everything that we're going to put on the disk. And I've already installed this before, and so I already have a Linux Mint 20 Cinnamon drive, but I'm going to go ahead and erase it here for you. I'm going to select my Linux Mint image, ISO image, from my Downloads ChromeOS folder. And I'm not going to make a persistent partition. I don't really care about that as far as being able to save materials on this live disk. I'm going to leave the partition scheme as MBR so that I can do BIOS or UEFI boot. That way, if I have an older computer, I can still boot MBR. But again, you have to make sure you're in UEFI mode. I just want to make sure Linux Mint boots. And this will allow me to install Linux Mint anyway from this key, which is my preferred version of Linux anyway. All right, so we're ready now to write our USB drive. When I click start, there's going to be 3 messages that pop up. You will not be able to see those because of the way I'm recording. But once I hit start, I'm going to say, yes, I want to write the ISO in image mode. You might get an error about it using sys Linux mode that may not be supported. Go ahead and say OK to that. And then finally go ahead and say OK to erase everything on your USB drive. And I probably should have mentioned that this is destructive to the USB drive as far as the data that's on it, but you can go ahead and, once you have everything written, use the drive again anyway because it's just FAT32. So I'm going to let Rufus complete its task while I go back over to the Windows folder. What we need to do is extract Brunch. So I'm going to just use 7-zip to extract that. You actually can't see those menus because I'm not capturing my entire screen. After Brunch is extracted, you're going to have a tar file. I'm going to extract that one more time, and Brunch will give us 4 different files that we're going to need to use. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up those 4 files and just drop them straight back into my ChromeOS folder. If you know a way to extract a tar gzip file on Windows in one step, point me to an article because I'd like to know. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and extract this ChromeOS image here. This is the biggest file and will take up the most space. So let's let that go ahead and finish up. And if we check on Rufus, you can see we're about 94% done. All right, so now I need the 4 files that came from Brunch, the ChromeOS, and the install script. So I should have 6 files selected. I'm going to press Control-C to copy those 6 files that I just selected. Now that Rufus is completed, I'm going to go ahead and close that window. And back in my Windows file, I am on the Linux Mint folder that we just created. I'm going to create a new folder here called ChromeOS. And those 6 files that I just copied, I'm going to go ahead and paste those in there. This will take a little while. I only get about 12 megabytes per second sustained write. Let me go ahead and pull that up so that you guys can see that. Now that everything is copied to the USB drive, there's one more quick change that we have to make. This file, it needs to be renamed just for sake of the script. If you were not using the script or you wanted to save yourself typing, that's the only reason we're changing this. Again, if we come back to Firefox and we look at this script that Mr. Kedar wrote, you can see right here that in the last line of the script, it has been shortened to ramisrecovery.bin. So that's why we changed that name. I'm going to go ahead now and take the USB key out of my computer, and we're going to boot up the laptop. Now, my laptop won't show us the display. Hopefully we can get this in the view, but my laptop won't output to HDMI until we're actually running in Linux Mint, and then I will switch the screen to that display. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and go into my Dell BIOS, which on my Dell computer is F2. Yeah, definitely can't see that too well with my camera trying to autofocus. I don't know if I can adjust that or not, but first thing I'm going to do is go into my boot sequence, and you can see here in my Dell BIOS that I have to set the option between Legacy and UEFI. So I went ahead and set UEFI as my default boot option, and then if I come down somewhere in here, under system configuration maybe, I'm not 100% sure. I am not seeing an option for secure boot, so I'll have to keep that in mind if I get an error when we go to boot the computer. Again, sorry for the terrible exposure here. I'm not quite sure how I can get that to change in this particular camera that I'm using. Alright, so we are good to go, so I'm going to go ahead and hit exit, and I'm going to hit F12. I'm going to be pressing F12 to try and get the boot menu. There you go. Every computer is a little bit different. Like the HPs I use at work, F9 is the boot menu and F10 is the BIOS, whereas this one, F2 is the BIOS and F12 is the boot menu. But I'm going to go ahead and set my UEFI boot to this int13. It just displays weird because this is a really early version of UEFI. And I'm going to just start Linux Mint and get it booted. As soon as we're booted, I should be able to switch to my capture card so that we can see the screen a lot better. With Linux Mint booted, I want to point out a very quick thing. The easiest way to find your hard drive name, we can just run gparted. You can do it from the command line and stuff, but some people aren't comfortable with that. But you can see here that I have device SDA, which is the 240 gig solid state drive. If I click on that, you can see we have dev SDA and dev SDB. So the script by default will overwrite dev SDA, but you might have a little bit cheaper device that uses an eMMC storage, and that instead of dev SDA, it'll say like dev MMC or something. If you're going to use the script, you need to make sure that you substitute the hard drive on your device with that hard drive that's listed here. Most computers will be dev SDA. It'll just be like a few things like a netbook or, again, a low-cost laptop that might use that lower-cost storage where you need to change this. So far, I've never run into a case where I needed to change it. I just wanted to point that out to you. All right, so we're going to go into our home directory. And The way the live CD works is the USB drive loads up under your CD-ROM. So if I hit File System and I go to CD-ROM, there's that ChromeOS folder we had created in Windows. And here is where I have all of those scripts. So I'm going to right-click and open a terminal so that we're right here at that ChromeOS folder. And we're going to do sudo for super user install. We're going to do sh and then install.sh. That's going to allow me to run that script without having to set all of the permissions and things like that. And what that's going to do is give me an error. I forgot to connect to Wi-Fi. So let me go ahead and connect to my Wi-Fi network real quick here. Sorry about that. You need to have an active Wi-Fi connection. The last computer I did this on was hardwired, so I didn't even have to think about that step. All right, so let me run that install script again so that we can update our repositories, install those 3 packages, and then we are going to actually install ChromeOS onto the computer. And again, Kedar Nimbalkar, if I'm saying his name correct, is the person who wrote this script. You can do it all manually, but just running his script is super easy. And again, it's going to notify you all data on device dev SDA will be lost. This doesn't show you how to dual boot Windows and ChromeOS together. It just strictly takes you to ChromeOS. So I'm going to go ahead and type yes, and I'm going to wipe my device. And I'm going to go ahead and speed through this part, and we'll be back as soon as ChromeOS is installed. Here you can see that ChromeOS is now installed successfully, and we are dropped back to the prompt. We are ready to reboot this machine. So you can reboot using the command line or just use your Linux Mint icon. I'm just going to hit power. I'm going to hit restart, and I'm going to give it a second here, and I'm going to pull the USB stick and press enter. All right. Let me go back to my camera capture here and see if we can't get this thing to capture correctly. It did not add a UEFI boot option here. So on my particular Dell, unfortunately, I'm going to have to do this manually. And I've had this problem with this Dell before. Let's try this one. All right, let's try that and see if that will help. Hey, that's better. All right, so it should have come up to that ChromeOS screen automatically. Unfortunately, this computer just has some issues with its UEFI implementation. So most computers don't have that problem. I used a Dell, a later model Dell, an all-in-one, and it installed and worked exactly like it was supposed to. So unfortunately, I can't get this focused quite right, but this text mode boot happens every time, and right now it's doing a little bit of updating on the file systems, mounting things, using those Brunch custom ChromeOS kernels and things like that. So we're going to go ahead and let this finish booting, and I'm going to switch back to my other image. And the reason I can't focus it is because my dog is actually sleeping right below us. So if I pick up my camera, you can see I just don't want to disturb my puppy. All right. Let me come back to my capture card, and it's just white right now. It appears that ChromeOS did detect both of my screens, but on this model, it appears my touchpad is not working. Let me get an external mouse real quick. I'm going to go ahead and just accept and continue. And again, this process doesn't typically take very long. All right. So now it's ready to set up this Chromebook. And one of the things I like about the latest version of ChromeOS is that it's asking you if you're going to set this up for work or personal use, or if you're going to set this up for your child. And it kind of walks you through some of the parental controls if you're using your child. But in the past, when you were on the login screen, you had to press Control-Alt-E to bring up Enterprise Enrollment. And now it's a button down here at the bottom. So if you were going to use this at work or at school, you can actually run the Enterprise Enrollment just like you can on an actual Chromebook. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next, and I'm going to go ahead and sign in. And then on my phone, let me go ahead and verify that it is me logging in for two-factor authentication. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to go ahead and close this. So the computer is syncing my settings and preferences right now, just like it should be. I'm going to definitely have to look into seeing if I can get the touchpad working. This computer now is running Google ChromeOS. So if I hit start, you can see it is nice and responsive without much issue as far as everything goes. But the next thing that I want to show you, if I open up Chrome and I go into the settings first, let me go to the settings first. By default, ChromeOS will not update in this setting automatically. So if I check for updates here, it's actually going to come back and tell me that it is fully up to date. And this is where the problem comes in with Brunch, is that as ChromeOS gets updated, which seems to happen every few weeks, it starts to change scripts, update scripts. Brunch may have a problem, and then Brunch needs to be updated. So you need to know how to update Brunch to keep this system running reliably. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to go ahead and go to Brunch. Oops. And I'm going to do Brunch Chrome OS just for the heck of it. And then it's going to take me straight to the Brunch download files. And I'm going to go ahead and download the latest release straight to my downloads files. And I want it in downloads, not on my Google Drive for this particular thing. So let me go ahead and hit save. And once that's done downloading, we need to do a couple of things with that file to get the latest version of Brunch installed. Now, in my particular case, I already have the latest version of Brunch because we just set up ChromeOS. But if you want to go from Chrome 86 to Chrome 87 or something like that, you're going to need the latest version. So I'm going to go ahead and just install it over itself, which doesn't seem to cause a problem at all. But on a Chromebook, you can bring up the ChromeOS shell by hitting Control-Alt-T. And then this is Crosh. So I'm going to go ahead and type shell to drop me down into a full shell so that I can go ahead and start to make changes. The first thing we're going to want to do is go into the downloads directory where we save that file. So it is in my home directory, so I'm just going to do cd tilde and type downloads. Downloads starts with a capital D, so make sure you have a capital D and then hit enter. And here in just a second, we'll have that full file. So you can see we still have the unconfirmed Chrome download temporary file. Let's just give it a second to finish downloading. And what we're going to do is issue a command that will get the latest Brunch release installed for us. So that's going to be sudo for super user do. And then we're going to just do ChromeOS update. The flag is going to be -F. And you can get help on these commands, but as soon as this file is done loading, it's going to be brunch something or other. You can see in the corner there it starts brunch under R_R86, so I'm just going to hit tab. And I'm running ChromeOS 86 and I'm running brunch release 86, so they are tied together, but when I hit enter, it's going to go ahead and update everything. You need to be connected to the internet when you do this because Brunch will download a few things from the internet. I'm going to speed through this process. Once it's done, we'll move on to the next step. All right, with Brunch updated on the computer, we're ready for the next step, and that's going to be editing the grub config. So if you go into sudo edit-grub-config, hit enter. On the end of this Linux line, you're going to want to add an option to Brunch so that it will allow you to auto update. The command is going to be options equals enable_updates. Oops. Helps if I type right. Now that I've enabled updates, I can go ahead and press Ctrl-O to write the file, and it's going to default to the correct grub file. I hit enter, then I press Ctrl-X, and we're good to go. If I bring that up again, you can see that the options equals enable updates is spelled correctly, saved correctly, so we're good to go. I'm going to go ahead and just exit, and I'm going to restart my Chromebook. I don't know if there's a way to start the Chromebook like the escape, or I'm sorry, the refresh power, the quick reboot on an actual Chromebook. I don't know if there's a replacement function for that yet. I'm still trying to figure out how some of this all works. And again, just so you can see, while we are waiting, the Chromebook, again, the laptop, I'm calling it a Chromebook because it now has ChromeOS, is actually going through that text mode boot as Brunch sets everything up, because we need to be able to load ChromeOS on a non-Chromebook device or a non-Chromebox device. Let me go ahead and switch the view back. Here in just a second, we should be able to see the signal clearly again. One of the drawbacks of this laptop that I am using is that it doesn't have a camera available on it. And because it doesn't have a camera, it's not very useful as an actual Chromebook, but you could always plug in a USB one and it might work. All right, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect that. So this time it did detect two screens, and I am mirroring the screens. I don't know why it didn't give me the settings for that the first time. There we go. Now I'm mirroring again. So here you can see it actually has the two screens stacked now. So the reboot picked up that secondary monitor, so maybe that was just a quick fluke. But you will notice now we are in 1366 by 768, and my capture card is designed to be full HD, so this might look a little bit weird. We might see some artifacting like you just saw. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do now, if I go into settings and I hit about ChromeOS, this time if I check for updates, we are actually going to get an update to my device. You can see now it says updating your device. This is actually kind of slow, and it's only going to update me to this subversion from 112 to .199, I believe. But let me go into Google Play, and I've never installed ETA 64. But let me go ahead and install ETA 64 here real quick. while this is downloading, this will show you that we're actually running on the bare metal. It is not running in a virtual machine or anything like that. All right. So here you go. You can see the manufacturer's Google. It's using the Ramus image that we downloaded. But if I go to CPU, you can see it is using the Intel Core i3-2310M. So this is actually a Sandy Bridge. This is second generation. I thought it was first generation, so that was my mistake. But you can see the display. It knows it's 1366 by 768, and it's using the Intel open source driver. Again, you need an APU, an Intel Core series processor with integrated graphics, or you need AMD APU with Vega graphics, or the previous generation before Vega, whatever was in Sandy Ridge. Without an APU, it won't work because it's not working with external graphics cards yet, and NVIDIA is not supported at all. We are emulating Android 9 inside of this ChromeOS, so let me go ahead and close that and close that. And this is going to take a little while to update, but once it's updated, things do work exactly like they should. Thank you so much for watching to this point. Before I conclude the video, I want to cover two things. The first is going to be UEFI. I don't want any new users thinking that this ChromeOS installation on an old laptop is going to be difficult. So I actually recorded a clip on this computer showing how the process normally works. So I'm going to go ahead and show that. And then I'm also going to give you information on how I fixed my touchpad. It seems that the touchpad not working is a common problem. And it looks like it's being detected as mine was being detected, and my left and right clicks were working, but I couldn't track. So I'm going to show you what options I covered. So I know this video is getting kind of long. We're probably at the 30-minute mark or so right here. But once I cover those two topics, we'll go ahead and conclude this. Thank you so much. So here on the HP, I'm actually booted into Linux Mint, and you can see I have a dev SDA that is completely unallocated. My hard drive is blank. This particular laptop, I'm pretty sure this is a mechanical drive, and the install is going to take a little bit longer because of that. So once I get to the install and the reboot, I will speed all of that up. But here, just like before, I get into the ChromeOS folder, drop into a terminal, and use the sudo command to go ahead and run the install script. So let me get this installed and get things rebooted and speed through this part so that once the reboot is complete, you can see that ChromeOS will just boot automatically. Now that ChromeOS is installed, we're ready to reboot. And so I'm going to use the shutdown command. Again, you can use the Linux Mint menu to do this. And sometimes I confuse Windows and Linux commands, so I need to retype the command here and use the word now to force the system to restart now. But what you're going to notice is once I remove the USB key and reboot the machine, I don't actually have to do anything. It just boots immediately into ChromeOS. So here you can see the grub menu came up, and everything is going to start going through that text mode window. So if you are a new user, you don't have to worry too much about that UEFI issue. That's actually specific to my laptop model and maybe a few laptops from early days of UEFI implementations. So don't let that scare you off from trying to convert your laptop to ChromeOS. After I got ChromeOS installed, the touchpad was not working properly, as you saw in my video, and I did a little bit of research. If I bring up Firefox here, Sabonk is the user who maintains the Brunch repository, and issue number 106 was a touchpad not working after ChromeOS was installed. ChromeOS uses this multi-touch driver called CMT, and in a file, the options for controlling the mouse just don't work with the default configuration with my particular touchpad. So right here, there's a comment from ZC88 on May 16th in this issue number 106, and there's these option lines right here that get added to a file, this 40 touchpad cmt elan.conf. So I'm going to pull back up my Chromebook. I'm going to press Control-Alt-T. That'll bring up Crosh. And then if you type shell, you get access to the Linux shell. And if I hit up, you can see that I've already got the command in my history, but I'm just using super user privileges and the program Nano to edit this file. So when I hit enter, the very top of this file, you can see the Chromium multi-touch gesture right here is the first option in this file. And this touchpad stack version 1, none of these option lines here existed. And so if I come back over to Firefox, you can see that between the Brunch Maintainer and ZC88, the troubleshooting back and forth, they figured out if you add these option lines to configure the touchpad, it starts to work correctly. And I think most of it has to do with this touchpad resolution, just dictating how when you move your finger, it dictates how the touchpad responds in the ChromeOS. So once you make that change and reboot your computer, the touchpad will work for you if you're having that problem. Well, as you can see, it's really easy to download and install ChromeOS on any PC or laptop. Barring the few issues that I had with my Dell Latitude, everything seems to be pretty straightforward. I've installed ChromeOS multiple times and playing with this process to see how it works, and I think it's an excellent option to revive some old hardware. I installed on a Dell all-in-one. I pointed up to it, but you guys can't see that. But the touchscreen worked, the Wi-Fi worked, everything worked on that all-in-one PC. You can see the laptop behind me is sitting at the welcome screen. This is the computer I used for my editor's note, where I went in and showed you after I installed it, it just booted correctly. That UEFI error not adding the option to boot to my BIOS is specific to that Dell. I've had it multiple times on that Dell, and I've had it once on another Dell that was an ultra small form factor PC, but outside of this particular laptop and that other machine, I don't see that. So I don't know if that's an old UEFI implementation or if it's something else, but definitely give this a try. Don't let my couple glitches that are bound to happen when you're doing anything live get in the way. And I want to thank you so much for watching the video to the end. I know this was kind of a long one at over 30 minutes, but if you like my content, definitely give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you like what I do, and leave some comments below. Let me know what you liked and what you didn't like, and I'll bring you some more content in the future. Thank you so much.